and one which occurred in June 13th, it became clear to us that there were several misrepresentations of fact, whether they were just, it was too soon and the state didn't have all its ducks in a row, or they were just misrepresentations. I'm not sure which, but there were misrepresentations that were made about the case and about Mr. Chopayev that the court used in order to determine that he was not a good candidate for bond. One of the most glaring ones that we all know now isn't true is that he never cooperated. He never cooperated. We know that's not true, Judge. You've heard from the federal agents, you've heard from the witnesses who testified before this court in the suppression hearing that he was a cooperator. And in fact, it was Mr. Chopayev who came to Atlanta when this incident occurred in order to provide information to Sandy Springs Police Department and to his handler at the time, Dante Jackson. He cooperated. In fact, I believe during the suppression hearing, J.T. Williams from Sandy Springs conceded that he was pursuing several unfruitful leads prior to Mr. Chopayev coming into the picture and pretty much giving the state, at that time, the theory that they're still marching forward with today. That was misrepresentation number one. We know he cooperated with the FBI, he cooperated with the DEA, he cooperated with the Atlanta Police Department, he cooperated with Dunwoody, he cooperated with
All right, now tell me your next
Service.
point, please.
Okay, my next point is that Manny tracked the victim on the day of the murder. Manny tracked the victim 11 times on the day of the murder.
The murder was on the 7th, right?
That's correct.
And the only time the defendant admitted to tracking him was on the 5th.
The only time he tracked him, period, was on the 5th. And we know
How
that
do we
that's
know
true.
that?
We know that's true because that's what he said, and that's also what their cooperator said. The cooperator, Grizz, or DeSenze White, who has now turned state's evidence, has confirmed that fact. It was Grizz, and it was El Dorado Red, and it was Connor in Washington, without Mr. Chopayev, who tracked the victim on the day of the murder and tracked him on the day before, and who were repeatedly hunting him down before they killed him, not Mr. Chopayev. So that was a misrepresentation number two. It was also represented, whether it was in this court or on the news, that Mr. Chopayev orchestrated the assassination of Lil Phat, that he hired people to come to Atlanta and kill Lil Phat. That's absolutely not true. That didn't happen, right?
We know Red did that, right?
That's right. That's correct. So he's not cooperating with the FBI. He gave the FBI the case. He tracked the victim on the day of the murder. He didn't track the victim on the day of the murder. He didn't know that they were going to murder this victim. And in fact, DeSenze White says that. Well, we never said we were going to kill him. We never said we were going to kill him. You know, so those are things.
Does White say that he's the one that tracked him on the day of the murder?
That's correct. That's correct. Mr. Chopayev was in Miami.
If all that's true, how does the state get a conviction for murder as a party to a crime?
Well, that's a good question, Your Honor. That's a good question, Your Honor. And I guess we'll have to fight that out in front of the jury. And we're prepared to do that. But right now, Mr. Chopayev is sitting in custody based on a lot of misrepresentations to this court.
Tell me your next one, please.
Okay. My next misrepresentation, that he told many lies to the police, and he lied to the FBI, and he lied to Sandy Springs. Well, what we know, what really happened, is that he did not tell them the full extent of his providing the ability to log into the system to Grizz, who was in fact his business partner, and Grizz has confirmed that in his proffer. He and Manny were business partners, so he had access to that system. He didn't tell that to the FBI, but that's a far stretch from saying that he lied from the time he opened his mouth until the time he stopped talking. The fact of the matter is, he told the state exactly the theory that they're proceeding forward with now on this case. It has proved to be true, and yet still he is still sitting here.
Tell me your next point.
All right, my next point. The theft of the car. The theft of the car. The alleged theft of the car that Lil Phat was driving, that he got arrested in, that ended up being the subject of a prosecution for Lil Phat, was somehow motive for Mr. Chopayev to have Lil Phat assassinated. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. None whatsoever. But that was information that they put forward to this court. So those are the misrepresentations that we would like this court to take into context now, understanding now the weakness of the position that the state is in terms of Mr. Chopayev, the fact that we are fighting about the admissibility of these statements. I'm sure the state thinks that they have a good position. We think we have a good position.
Is that now totally up on appeal?
That is up on appeal at this, well, I think that their brief has not been submitted yet, I'm not sure yet, but they have intended that they file their notice of appeal. We have filed a petition. So that plus the Ayala factors. That
Tell me
plus the
about those,
Ayala
please.
factors. Okay. He has significant and strong ties to this
Tell me
community.
about those places.
He's been in Atlanta since 2002. He has family here. His son is here. His brother is a resident here. He has made Atlanta his home for many years. He's not going anywhere, Judge. He's not going anywhere. If he were released on bond, he would live with his brother. He could wear an ankle monitor. He doesn't have a passport. He has nowhere to go. He has no reason to go anywhere. And in fact, if he wanted to run, the time to run would have been a long time ago, but he never ran. He never ran. When he knew that they were looking for him, he always made himself available. He has never run. He's not going to run. He has strong ties to this community. We would submit to this court in addition to that. He's not a flight risk. He's not a danger to the community, notwithstanding these charges. He is not a danger to this community. He is the type of person that the FBI and the DEA and all of these esteemed agencies saw fit to work with and trust, not only with their most important
Does he have
cases,
any other dealings with the FBI anymore?
but with their lives. No, not at this time. He doesn't have any dealings with the FBI. There is no risk of him intimidating witnesses at all. There's no evidence that he ever did that or would do that. And there's no risk that he would commit another felony while on bond. To the extent that the court thinks there might be some risk, those can be mitigated. They can be mitigated by placing him on an ankle monitor, something akin to what you did for Grizz in this case, Your Honor. Grizz, who's the co-defendant in this case, who admittedly wanted the victim dead, who admittedly tracked him down on the day of the murder, who sat around and ate a steak dinner knowing that these two goons were about to lay him out in Northside Hospital parking lot, is on bond. So we would submit to this court that Manny Chopaya, who wasn't there, who wasn't a part of those conversations, who did not partake in that murder, who was somewhere in Miami when that happened, is a good candidate for bond.
What kind of bond do you propose?
I'm proposing that this court grant him an $80,000 bond, an ankle monitor, house arrest. He doesn't leave the house unless he comes to court or unless he comes to see his lawyer or without the express permission of this court. And any other conditions that this court would deem appropriate. And it's important in addition to that, Your Honor, because while the evidence in this case, we believe, will speak for itself in front of the jury, and it's weak, the fact of the matter is he's in the fight for his life. There is a tremendous amount of discovery in this case, paper, document, phone records, text messages, electronics, videos, that we are having a difficult time preparing for his defense with him. He is extremely critical for the defense in this case. Just like the state has J.T. Williams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in their office and sitting at the table, he's our J.T. Williams. He's our best weapon against this case, and we don't have access to it.